Welcome to Upfront. This is a special edition because we are on location in Powell River in the Mayor and Council chambers. And joining me is Mayor Dave Formosa. You have been mayor for a very long time now.
Well, my service years now, it's 8 years.
8 years.
And, but the first term, 3 years of that was with, as a councillor. And the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, basically, as mayor, yeah.
Okay. Now, the biggest challenge, and continues to be, is BC Ferries. So where do things stand with your discussions with BC Ferries?
Well,
that you can share with us.
Yeah, we got to the point of, sort of total frustration, and I made a move, I think, but with the support of my council, and I think a fair number of community members, to actually go out and take the government up on the fact that certain routes were up for grabs if you wanted to take them and run them privately.
Oh.
So we took that serious because of the fact that we were just, not doing so well in the ferry commute business, and not wanting to harp on it all the time, which we decided not to be out there and be this yelling voice in public, because that would just turn people off from coming here.
Right.
Well, why do you want to come if you can't get on the boat, or this?
Right.
So, we kind of kept our squeaky, voices and pressure, in Victoria itself. And so it got to the point where I wanted to speak with the minister about actually looking at taking over the service. And I don't think it was, we were really taken serious, or that they really wanted to go down that road, because when it came time to, get down to it, the minister didn't want to have that conversation with me, but did offer sort of lower level politicians, not even high level.
Okay.
So I don't know what happened there, but on the bright side, though, we have a great, fairly new service on the south side, which is, Saltry Bay to Earl's Cove, and so that ferry runs beautifully. Other than the lack of routes or runs, because they've been cut back, and the high cost. Right. The Comox Little River has been an absolute nightmare with the old Burnaby. Just breaking down at will over and over again and just causing havoc. Well, good news is BC Ferries totally rebuilt both terminals for millions of dollars. Yes. And now they've provided us with a brand new, beautiful ferry that's going to start up sort of any week, any month, any day now, the Orca. And I hear it's a beautiful unit. I was away when they were here doing some trials and allowing folks on it. I didn't get to get on it, but I can imagine what it's like. But so that way, we're looking darn good. We're not going to be having all the service interruptions for weather and breakdowns, because the Burnaby was cut back on its tolerance levels. Right. So they would shut down the ferry at a certain weather when really it could have went in that weather, but because it was old and so we're going to see a big difference. Okay. The new ferry coming, great that it's brand new, but it is a bit smaller, like 50 cars less. Yeah. And in the summer months, I've been in that ferry lineup, and 50 cars is substantial, and that's what's in that ferry lineup. So how are you going to address that situation? Are they going to offer more runs because it's a smaller boat? So, that would be nice. That would be ideal, but we're actually running with less runs than we did in previous life, right? Because of the cutbacks, which I don't understand. I guess, Are they going to keep that in the summer months when it's really busy? Well, in the summer months, they pump it up. In the winter months, where you're going to have an issue will be long weekends and holidays. Okay. Generally, they've done their homework. You're going to see a pretty, calm, normal usage. But long weekends and holidays, plan ahead. You got to plan ahead. Yeah. Plan ahead and reserve. Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. So that solves it for the time being. Are you still considering a fixed link to the mainland? Yeah, so that is in the hands of, as you know, the ministry. What I'm sure we would love to see is a bridge basically just below Lions, what's the name of that community? Squamish area there. where there's an opportunity to have a bridge come across just past the wood fiber in that area.
Okay.
And that would be great, because now we would have a link to Powell River where it would be just one ferry. So
Right.
people in the lower mainland could get on this bridge, or if that's not the option, then drive around the Horn, so basically around Squamish, around the Horn, and then back onto the main, it's all on the mainland,
Right.
but then connect back into the upper highway that takes you into, actually, I think it would cut through the back into Seashell,
Okay.
and maybe come through into Gibson's as well. I'm not
Okay.
sure. Lions Bay, what I was trying to
Lions
think of.
Bay, okay.
But, I mean, that is something that if wood fiber goes ahead, I think there's a very good chance, regardless maybe of how the public feel, you will see the government put that bridge in or that connection in.
Okay.
And from what I can understand, it's because they don't want the ferry and the LNG ships. It's tight in there in Howe Sound, and they want to alleviate that pressure, I believe. So
Okay.
that
So it's
would be-
actually industry growth that's going to drive that change,
Yes. I
not
mean,
the want of the people.
that's my view. I mean, the want
Okay.
of the people, I believe, helped get the study going.
Okay.
I think if you get right down and kind of look what's going on and just think about it, it's already tight with all the ship traffic going into the Port of Vancouver.
Right.
Apparently, at the point there where you're going into Howe Sound versus into the port, it's already tight there. So then, we take our ferry traffic and then we start running LNG traffic and then the regular. I think that's probably, the biggest motivator in my view.
Now, thinking back, over the last 100 years and the level of commitment, say 50, 60, 70 years ago to infrastructure, which built all of the bridges and all of the roads and all of the tunnels and all of that. In my lifetime, I don't think we're actually seeing that level of investment today. And I'm just wondering, I mean, you've been sitting in the mayor's chair for a long time, and I'm just wondering why that is. Like, is it because that the politicians of today at the provincial and federal level don't have the willpower to make those long-term expensive commitments because they're just thinking about re-election? Or like, what is it? Why are we not being visionaries?
So I think, again, my view is the infrastructure, other than the growth, which, they try and keep up with, has been, was put in place, was done well, and has been solid and sound. But 80 years later, that infrastructure is starting to get tired and dangerous and outdated and needs to be replaced, along with the tremendous growth that, like, the lower mainland has seen, and then from there, all the little pockets of places where people move to that support sort of the central hub of the province. So, bedroom communities, folks call them, and then they start to grow. So then you've got that growth of, asset that's required, but then you've got that backfill of the old stuff, and it comes down to dollars and cents. I mean, it's very, very, very expensive.
Where did the dollars come from originally?
Well, from
Like, that's-
the government, from, the federal and provincial government, and that's where they're going to come from again. So Trudeau, promised billions of dollars to rebuild the country, and it was a grand move and a good move, one that excited your local politicians and your provincial politicians, because we know the pressure we're under, and we know that these assets have to be renewed. I mean,
Right.
the hospitals are falling apart,
Right.
the schools are falling apart, the roads are falling apart, the bridges are falling apart. Then we have the growth, the liquid waste facilities, the water facilities, and then the rules become more stringent over water and over liquid waste and environment. And so, it's mega bucks. But it's also a good way to, rekindle your economy, because
And put people to work.
Yeah, you're putting people
Yeah.
to work, building, the new
What we
hotel
need, right.
that brings in revenue,
Right.
building the new mill that brings in
So
revenue.
have you seen some of that money yet from the feds?
Yeah, we're starting to see it. It's actually starting to come in.
And is there an infrastructure project on the table for Powell River that you're?
Yeah, there's a number of them, but we
Okay.
have one approved, and that's going to be the twinning of our new water system. So coming out of Haslam Lake, we have sort of one old line going into the new, infrared water system. I think it was like an $8 million bill originally when we built it during my time here.
Yeah.
We at the time wanted to twin the line because it was the one old line. Well, budget didn't allow it.
Right.
We just got a grant. I think it was a couple of $1 million. I think it's a $3 million build.
Okay.
And we just got, I think a few million towards that. We have to pay our third.
Yes.
We've got another application in, and we're accepted for working engineered drawings for our new liquid waste management system.
Okay.
So our flush toilet system. So we just were granted a number of millions because we have an approved plan, which a lot of people struggle with, and we've been struggling with it for, I think, 12 years. We were one of the oldest besides Victoria in the province. They couldn't get our act together, but it is, and we just got a grant to take us to the next level, a number of millions.
Okay, perfect.
So it's starting to flow.
We're going to pick up right after the breaks. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. With me is Mayor Dave Formosa from Powell River. We are in council chambers for mayor and council here in Powell River, and we will be right back after this break. Welcome back to Upfront. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. We are here in Powell River with Mayor Dave Formosa. Now, you were talking about infrastructure. Now, you're looking at building some new subdivisions because, of course, your population is growing for the first time in a while. How will that new infrastructure support that? Like, is that kind of coming together?
Part and parcel, yeah. So, the water, availability of good, clean, fresh water. And, I'm proud to say that, well, everybody was in phase, 1, 2, 3, or 3, 2, 1 of water use last year. We didn't have any, we weren't even on the radar of having to worry. We've got 3 major lakes around the city, 2 of which are piped, large lakes, which are piped right into the city, we're connected to.
Okay.
So we're pretty fortunate that way. The new water system is all up to date and ready to handle growth. We do get some issues in different areas with pressure, when you try and build that up with pumps and engineering and such. But there are some areas of the community where we're going to have to start saying maybe in this area and that area we're going to have to sprinkle the houses because we just can't get the pressure. But generally, we're in great shape for water. Liquid waste is, an issue, but we now have an approved plan, and we're looking at about $25–30 million that needs to be found. But the next step is creating the actual working drawings.
And do you have a location for
that
station?
Yeah, it's all approved, all through Victoria passed. The location is there, the property's in hand, it's done. We've got all that behind us.
Okay.
And that was one of the first things that this council finished off when, we got together.
Okay.
We just, put the old idea of treating in the mill to bed, and we're building a standalone system.
Okay.
So that'll, take care of that end of it, which sewer, water,
absolutely.
Roads are your basics.
Now, where are you looking to build some of the new subdivisions?
Well, we've got applications in all over the community, basically, there's big one in Wildwood, not a big one, but a couple of them actually in Wildwood. We've got 3 or 4 right in the city here.
Now, would those be
within
actual,
Westview,
like condo buildings, or
No,
are those
they're
actual
subdivisions,
houses?
lots.
Oh, subdivision. Oh, okay.
For individual homes. So there's a fair amount of those. There are units being built for rental, townhouses for rental. They're approved. We put them through. That's one thing I got to say. Thomas Knight in our planning department is doing a great job. And when you talk to the contractors and such, and we had a big meeting this morning, a $26 million project that will probably end up a $50 million project. The owners of Santa Veritas just left here elated with the planning department and looking forward there. We've got new apartments being put in, low-cost housing.
Okay.
We've got a seniors project going in for I think 50 seniors for senior living.
Now, let's talk about the builds themselves for a second. When we were talking with Mayor Andy Adams from Campbell River, something he shared with us is that for the last 7 years in Campbell River, every single new house that's built has to be outfitted to support solar power.
Really? Gee, Andy.
Now, is that something that you would consider? Because solar power has come down in cost hugely, and this is, after all, sunny Powell River.
Yeah, Sunshine Coast. I think, well, here's what I do know, is that if you propose, you know, these types of developments, you know, that are more socially, you know, wanted and accepted in the, you know, green power, green energy world, that you get points towards your project, there's no doubt. So if you're going to say we're going to put in solar power, we're going to put in outlets for charging vehicles,
Right.
you know, we're going to limit the amount of car spaces because we're going to want, you know, strategically located properties where people can walk to the, you know, the hospital, the school, the
Of
grocery
course.
store, the clinics, or to transit. Transit's right there. That's where Tom has been very you know, he's been inventive and coming
Okay.
up with spot zoning ideas. So we don't have rules or things that say you gotta have, you know, this or you gotta have that. But definitely we're seeing more of it.
Okay.
You know, we're seeing people become, you know, a lot more respectful of the assets and of the community amenities and the infrastructures we've been talking about,
Right.
trying to get the most out of them and trying to be as environmentally friendly as possible.
Okay. Where would you say Powell River is on the scale of environmental awareness and following through?
I would say out of 10, you know, my council is probably a 10.
Really?
9.5, yeah. Very progressive in that manner. I mean, just the other day, they banned water bottles in City Hall, the water bottles in the complex. You know, you're not allowed to have
Yep.
bottles. I voted against it, but, you know, that was pretty progressive. I think next is going to be, you know, plastic bags. We're doing a study right now on a small solar farm. So we
Yep.
want to we're doing a study to say, okay, what would be the impact if we were to put in, you know, so many megawatts of power on a small basis.
Right.
And we're looking at it just in front of our airstrip here in Westview. You know, what would it produce? What would it cost? And so we're actually doing a study on that to see if then we can start looking at, you know, taking solar into our complex, into our library, down to our beach where we have our stage and fire
Right.
everything up in that regard, you know, using solar power. And,
So
know,
are you
these-
looking at some of the other solar banks that have now been built around the world? Like there's a huge one in India and there's
yeah,
another one in
no,
Saudi
no.
Arabia and in
Well,
the desert and
No, we're pretty well aware that all that's going on.
Yeah.
And so basically, we're just putting out an RFP for
what can we do
a
here?
study to say,
Okay.
here's how much space we have.
Right.
What can we do here?
Right. Okay.
I think everybody knows that, you know, solar costs have come way down.
Yeah. And
They're
Tesla-
viable.
Tesla's now come out with solar shingles
Yeah.
for
Oh,
roofing.
there's solar, all kinds of stuff. I just
Yeah.
came back from the largest solar show in the world in China. I just came back.
Oh.
It was, I think, 15 buildings the size of our recreation complex. That's how big it was. It took 3 days to walk through it. Last year, I was at the North American, and they also said the World Show in Las Vegas. The year before that, I was in the show in LA.
Yeah.
All it is solar. And I've gone to the last 3 on my own dime because
Right.
I'm interested in the industry.
Well, one of the interesting things that I'm not sure everybody is aware of, but China is actually one of the fastest growing solar users
Yes, they are.
on the planet.
Yeah. So if you're driving down the road in China, you will see the street lights
Yeah.
are solar.
Right.
The traffic control lights are solar.
Solar.
I mean, right, you know, in the cities.
Yeah.
You'll see banks of solar farms. A lot of solar water heat there. But you know, the other thing which is a real phenomenon that because I'm studying it so much, as I said, I've been to every major show in the last 3 years. I think it's California, and next Arizona have outlawed solar. Do you know that?
Why?
I'll tell you why, because it's, I guess it's the demise of your own success. So the big power companies have gone to the government and said, look, you know, you convinced us to spend all these billions of dollars to create these nuclear power systems or whatever, you know,
Right.
gas-powered power systems to power America.
Yeah.
And now you're allowing these solar people to come in, and our grid, our customer base is shrinking at an alarming rate. And we may lose 30% of our customers to solar, and if we do, we'll go broke. And so they've actually gone to the customers and cut them off and said, you cannot hook to our grid. And I don't know if it's every, you know, if it's all of California or if California is the exact state. I know Arizona is, there's another one looking at it, but it's been done. I think it's California. I'm not sure if it's one of those hot states, because it was the talk
Okay.
of the show.
Right.
Not in LA, not 2 years ago, but in Vegas last year. And it was shocking. And so
is
basically,
shocking.
yeah, well, what it is they're losing their, you know, it's so successful because there it's sunny every day, pretty well.
Correct. Yep.
And so more and more people are investing, you know, I've just turned my house over to solar. So
Did
my
you?
home is solar powered,
Okay.
right? And so I've got, I don't know, 35, 40 panels on the roof.
Yep.
And if the sun's shining, I totally run my home off the sun.
Right.
And I even have the ability to feed back into the grid and get a rebate.
So the biggest challenge with solar isn't so much the panels, but it's the battery pack to hold the power, correct? Is that where the cost
Now,
is?
there's two ways of going with that. So off-grid systems for your summer home or your
Yeah.
winter home where there is no grid.
Yeah.
Then you've got your batteries. So you're running
Okay.
during the day and you're charging your batteries.
Which
and then,
run through the
And
night.
then when the
Okay.
sun's gone,
Yeah.
you know, the batteries come up through the inverter, which gets it 110 volts, and you run the house sparingly. You're careful. You're not careless with your power. Because
Correct.
once those batteries go down, you know, the lights start to flicker, right?
Yes.
But, you know, nowadays you got 2-volt fridges and
Yes.
you've got, you know, LED lights, and so you can keep your usage up and your consumption down with technology.
Right.
But now my home, for instance, so you can buy two systems. One, which the majority of people buy, is you just plug into the grid, you know, you have your inverter, you don't even actually, yeah, I guess you do have an inverter. You have your charge controller, you have your solar panels, and
Okay.
you know, you're holding this power, you're at work, you're not using it, feeds back to the grid.
Okay.
So the majority of people in their homes, like here, don't have battery backup. Okay, they're just using it as they need it, then at nighttime they go to the grid.
Okay.
Now, if you buy the right unit, and I, you know, recommend people do, that you buy a unit that allows you to have batteries, so that you can just simply add the battery bank, and then during the day you're charging those batteries. Now at nighttime at home, you flip over to the batteries,
Right.
and now you're 24/7. But
Right.
it takes more money and more space
Yes.
because they're quite large. So
Oh, are
you know
they?
you're going to need a bit of space in, you know, wherever
So
your
are we
garage.
talking 4x4 or 16
Yeah,
by
you're
16?
you're talking like 4x4 kind
Okay.
of thing.
All right.
You know.
Cool. We are in Powell River in the council chambers with Mayor Dave Formosa. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. You're watching Up Front. We will be back right after this break. Welcome back. You're watching Up Front. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. We've got about 4 minutes left here with Mayor Dave Formosa here in Powell River. Powell River is on fire.
It is.
Okay,
And,
give us the list.
Well, you
What's
know,
going on?
our real estate market is, I guess, one of the hottest in the province.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a Canadian statistic, but if you take our sales, let's just say this year versus this year versus last year, we're up the highest percentage per capita, not in dollars and cents, but in
Right.
deals.
Yep.
You know, I have a 33 lot subdivision, and up until a year ago, I'd only sold maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 lots over 3 years. And in the last 8 months, I've got 7 or 8 lots left. That's it.
Wow.
And, you know,
so things are moving.
Things are moving, and there's homes going up all through the property, and that seems to be a norm. You put your house up for sale, it's sold, you know, multiple offers.
Above asking.
Bidding up above asking.
Okay.
You know, folks have found Powell River.
So does that mean that there's new industry coming here as well?
That's part of it, but I think, you know, we've done a real good job at resident attraction. We've done a good job at going out and seeking, you know, folks to come here.
Yeah.
Going out and seeking industry to come here. We have a definite economic revitalization plan, and if you look at the plan that was written, you know, 5, 6 years ago, it's more or less exactly what's happening today.
On target.
But the wind in the sail is this lower mainland explosion.
Right.
So we're getting some of that overflow.
Right.
That's kind of adding to all the work we're doing. I mean, I just got back from my 4th trip, I think, 3rd, 4th trip to China in the last, you know, 3 or 4 years. So I'm there vigorously looking for investment. But on the housing realm, you know, folks are finding that it's affordable.
Right.
It's safe, it's quiet.
Very.
Our education revitalization plan is working well.
Okay.
And so it's just like a
And
bit
the
of a
airport,
snowball.
that was the other thing
airport
you-
operation, you know, our plans at the airport are moving ahead. You know, we're hoping to see $10 million invested up there over the next few years.
And is that a partnership provincially, federally?
No, these are private industries looking at
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
setting up businesses,
Okay.
aircraft businesses
Yeah.
on our properties. The city of Powell River
Okay.
owns their airport, and so
okay.
we have put together a plan.
Yep.
And then we went out and looked for customers, and we found them. And
Got
so
it.
now we're working with them.
Okay.
And soon it'll be coming to council, and everything will be for everyone to see, and it's going to be very exciting.
All right.
And good paying jobs. And yeah, we've got 4 or 5 pockets of, you know, millions and tens of millions being spent.
Okay. The mill, what's going on with the mill?
Well, they are now successfully making paper towel and foodstuff papers
Okay.
off the machine that used to, you know, make newsprint, which is a dying breed, unfortunately. And they're at the point now of, on the paper towel, trying to get their tonnage up so that it starts making some economic sense. But they basically took a machine that shouldn't have and could have and did. And they're making paper towel, and we're proud of it.
Yeah.
And we have orders for it.
Okay.
And so the strategy there is, you know, for us to keep working with the mill to give them the runway
Right.
of time so that they can convert out of the paper and into the new products.
And here's an idea. Instead of wrapping that paper towel in plastic, wrap it in paper.
Wrap it in paper.
Wrap it in paper.
Out with the plastic.
And create a paper wrap for all of the toilet paper on the planet, and that mill would be jumping.
Perfect.
Okay. A pleasure as always. Thank you so much for the time this afternoon. It's been very insightful.
And it's been my pleasure. Thank you very much for caring and wanting to know what we're doing here in Powell River, and God bless to everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
You've been watching Up Front. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.